December 7th, 1941. 6 Japanese carriers launch hundreds of planes to attack Pearl Harbor. Soldiers jump from burning warships, fighter planes explode before they get off the tarmac. It's one of the bloodiest attacks in U.S. history, and nobody saw it coming. But let's change one thing. Anchored off Ford Island is something no one understands. A 100,000-ton nuclear-powered supercarrier from 2017. The USS Gerald R. Ford dropped into a battle it was never meant to fight. So what happens when the most advanced carrier on Earth is unleashed during one of history's most infamous attacks? Can it turn the tides of war? Or is it just one carrier against 6? First, let's look at exactly what we just dropped into 1941. The Gerald R. Ford spans nearly 1,100 feet, or 3.5 football fields, is powered by 2 nuclear reactors that could run for 20 years without refueling, weighs 100,000 tons, or 200 million pounds, and moves 35 miles or 56 kilometers per hour. It's got a dual-band radar system that can track hundreds of targets simultaneously from over 250 miles away, as well as 75 onboard aircraft including FA-18 Super Hornets that fly at Mach 1.8, F-35C Lightning II stealth fighters invisible to 1941 radar, EA-18G Growlers that can fry enemy electronics, and E-2D Hawkeye planes with 350 miles of radar coverage. The ship itself has RIM-162 Sea Sparrow missiles that cruise at Mach 4, RIM-116 rolling airframe missiles for anything that gets close, and 3 Phalanx CIWS systems that fire 4,500 rounds per minute. But Admiral Chuichi Nagumo's strike force is no joke either. So let's see what we're up against. In total, there are 6 fleet carriers: Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, Hairu, Shikaku, and Zuikaku. The apex predators of 1941 naval warfare, whose air wings pack 353 aircraft flown by the best pilots in the world. Among these aircraft are the fast and agile Mitsubishi A6M Zeros, Aichi D3A dive bombers, and Nakajima B5N torpedo bombers, carrying especially modified shallow water torpedoes designed specifically for Pearl Harbor. These pilots have trained for months under Commander Mutsuo Fuchida. They built scale models of Pearl Harbor and practiced until they could fly the attack route blindfolded. The Japanese plan is to send in 2 waves, the first to hit airfields and battleships simultaneously to prevent American response, and the second to take out whatever's left. It's devastating, and historically, it works perfectly. 5:30 a.m. Japanese pilots get their final briefings 230 miles north of Oahu, when the Gerald R. Ford's radar operators notice something interesting. Blips on their screens appear to be moving directly towards them at 180 knots. The Ford's Combat Information Center lights up, and within seconds, the ship's computers identify all 183 aircraft in the first wave. The radar tracks their altitude, speed, heading, and even estimates their fuel state. The carrier's captain doesn't hesitate, and general quarters sound throughout the ship, ordering pilots to their aircraft. Within minutes, electromagnetic catapults begin launching the first fighters to respond. By 6 a.m., a squadron of Super Hornets is airborne, climbing rapidly to 40,000 feet. Below them, Japanese pilots in open cockpits are still 150 miles from Pearl Harbor, completely unaware they're being stalked. The first AMRAAM missile launches at 6:45 a.m. From the Japanese perspective, Petty Officer Takeshi Maeda is checking his fuel gauge when the plane next to him disintegrates before his eyes. There was no warning, and still no enemy in sight. Panic ripples through the formation as pilots search for an enemy that's attacking from beyond visual range. Some dive for the deck while others climb desperately. The tight attack formation that took months to perfect dissolves into chaos in seconds. The first attackers are the Super Hornets, which engage from 30 miles away as their radar-guided missiles make the pilot's job to fire and forget. Commander Fuchida tries to restore order over the radio when he notices something is wrong. Several of his planes are indeed missing, but even the ones still in the air aren't responding to his call. EA-18G Growlers have arrived, their EW rendering every Japanese radio useless. The coordinated Japanese team is now deaf and alone on an empty horizon, hunted by a predator they have yet to see. The first wave loses 60 aircraft before Pearl Harbor enters view, but the Japanese press on to finish their mission. As the pilots approach Pearl Harbor, they meet the Ford's second line of defense. F-35 see Lightning IIs circling them at 15,000 feet. The Japanese pilots finally get to see who they're fighting, but the F-35s engage with infrared missiles that lock onto engine heat, and the outcome is the same. More Zeros fall from the sky, leaving trails of thick smoke in their wake. While the fight rages above, torpedo bombers drop to wave height in a desperate attempt to make their attack run. At this point, the Ford's Phalanx CIWS system activate, firing thousands of tungsten projectiles that shred any unauthorized aircraft that enter within a 3-mile radius of the carrier. By 8 a.m., when the attack should be reaching its crescendo, Battleship Row sits untouched. A handful of Japanese planes barely make it through and release their bombs haphazardly. Most hit water, but the few that find targets face alert American anti-aircraft crews who have had over an hour since the Gerald entered the base to prepare for the attack. Radar still jammed, the Japanese carriers have no idea what's happening, so their only option is to assume they're still on schedule and send out the second wave. 170 aircraft heading directly for a nest of Super Hornets with missiles ready waiting at 35,000 feet. At 8:40 a.m., Lieutenant Commander Shigekazu Shimazaki leads the second wave south, but by this time, the Ford has already launched everything it needs. The entire fleet is tracked on radar while the Growler has already jammed their radios. F-35s prowl at medium altitude while Super Hornets set up a killing box. The massacre only intensifies as the Japanese formation enters Pearl Harbor's airspace. Now they face not just jets, but the Ford's close-in defenses, as well as every alerted naval AA battery on Oahu. The sky becomes a web of tracer fire and exploding shells that decimate the attackers. By 9:45 a.m., the second wave has lost over 140 aircraft. The few survivors scatter across the Pacific, most running out of fuel before finding their carriers. Shimazaki himself dies when a Phalanx system turns his torpedo bomber into confetti 1,000 yards from Battleship Row. But the Ford isn't done. As Japanese aircraft flee north, the carrier launches a strike package. 30 Super Hornets armed with Harpoon anti-ship missiles, laser-guided bombs, and coordinates to the Japanese fleet's last known position. The Japanese air fleet, the Kido Butai, has no more air support. Every fighter is either in the water or running on fumes. Lookouts spot the incoming jets, but their anti-aircraft guns are designed for planes flying 300 miles per hour, not 1,200. All they can do is watch. Akagi takes 3 Harpoon missiles to its center and splits in half. Akaga's aviation fuel detonates after a direct hit from a 2,000-pound laser-guided bomb. Within 20 minutes, 4 Japanese carriers are burning and sinking. The remaining 2 flee west at flank speed as their captains desperately radio reports about jets that fly faster than sound and missiles that guide themselves. But Growlers are still in the air, and the only people receiving their messages are the ones standing next to them. When the smoke clears, the Battle of Pearl Harbor has become Japan's worst naval defeat. They lose over 300 aircraft, 4 fleet carriers, and their best pilots, while American casualties number in the dozens and the Pacific Fleet is ready for war. Or what do you think would happen? And if you're curious about what would happen if a Navy SEAL fought in the Coliseum, check out the video on the screen now. Thanks for watching.